So hello everyone, and welcome to today's MASTS webinar. I'll give you a quick introduction, then we'll jump right into today's talks. So Keith and Hoa will speak for around 20 minutes each, and then we'll have a Q&A. So please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A tab, which should be at the top of your screen, or after the talks, you can raise your hand and we'll get around to your question. So the talks will be recorded, but not the Q&A session. Today's MASTS webinar is titled Harmful Algal Blooms in Southeast Asia. Our speakers today are Professor Keith Davidson, a marine biogeochemist based at SAMS with a specific interest in phytoplankton, and Dr. Hoa Nguyen, a mathematical marine biologist and a former maths PhD student. She is now a postdoctoral researcher at Helmholtz Zentrum, Hereon in Germany. I probably butchered that. Maybe you can correct me. And also holds a research position at the Vietnam National University's Institute for Environment and Resources. So Keith will first discuss the HAB early warning system jointly developed in Scotland and Malaysia. And then Hoa will introduce a modelling approach to investigate the increase in HABs along Vietnam's coasts over the past decade or so. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Keith now.
Yeah, a bit of a double act today from Hoa and myself, who will hopefully be working together relatively soon on when Hoa comes to visit, well, particularly Neil Bannis in Strathclyde, but also coming up to visit us. But at the moment, our talks will be quite separate. Mine will probably be a little bit more high level, and then you'll get maybe some detailed modelling in part two. So I'll talk about some projects that sort of jointly operated between Scotland and Malaysia, related to early warning of harmful algal blooms and associated biotoxins. So maybe just to set the scene, HABs, harmful algal blooms, are proliferations, increases, rapid increases of phytoplankton that cause harm to humans or our use of the marine ecosystem. And often that use is related to aquaculture. And just some nice pretty pictures of some of the causative organisms that my colleague Callum White took. So these blooms occur, they can occur naturally or through anthropogenic pressures, often nutrient runoff. And they can be quite hard to mitigate. Once they're there, there's not an awful lot you can do about them. So often that we're interested in early warning to try and give the industry as much notice of what's coming their way, and then potentially they can make whatever husbandry decisions that they want to. There we go. So SAMS for 20 years now has been contracted by Food Standards Scotland to do the monitoring of biotoxin producing phytoplankton in Scottish waters for shellfish safety. So we monitor or we analyse samples, water samples that are collected to see if there's any potentially toxic species there. And another part of the programme is undertaken by CFAS, who measure the toxins, excuse me, within the cells. And that system works pretty well. We collect about 40 samples a week on a routine basis, and we report the results, and Food Standards make decisions on whether a shellfish farm is open or closed. However, very occasionally things go wrong. The last time it really went wrong was in 2013, when there was quite a significant shellfish poisoning event from mussels that were collected harvested and collected in Shetland. So we did a bit of work to try and see, well, why did that get through? Why did it get through the regulatory system? And it turns out it was a bloom of this organism here, Dinophysis. And I'll not go, on the basis of time, I won't go into too much detail, but the yellow hatchings basically demonstrate a very, very rapid bloom of Dinophysis, and the red dots are showing where the shellfish toxicity went above regulatory threshold. And you can see, if you're familiar with the units, some of these values are very, very high. So the reason there was a problem was that bloom happened really fast. The monitoring happens weekly, and the increase occurred in less than a week. So the harvester thought he was okay based on the previous sample, but no, he wasn't. So we did a bit of work, and we were able to show that this occurred basically because there was an offshore bloom of Dinophysis and quite a very, very strong westerly wind-driven currents that pushed this bloom very rapidly onto the west coast of Shetland and caused these very quick shellfish positives. So on the basis of that, we thought, well, maybe we could have actually, maybe we could have provided some early warning if we'd been trying to do so, if we'd been looking at the environment. So that led us to work with this group of people, which is a trade association in Shetland called Seafood Shetland, who cover most of the, I think all of the shellfish producers in Shetland and some of the finfish producers. And they were worried about reputational damage from rapid blooms like the one that occurred in 2013. But also just ongoing events. They reckon that they probably lose about 15% of production on an annual basis simply due to Dinophysis alone, and the other harmful taxa on top of that. So actually being able to understand when these events will happen and will allow them to manage things better. I'll come on to finfish in a minute, but the cost to the finfish aquaculture industry from HABs can be much, much greater because it's a larger industry. So what we did with Seafood Shetland was initially develop a PDF-based weekly report, and that's been running for probably about 10 years now, based on sort of maps and infographics. So this is just a couple of example pages. The maps there of Shetland show at the bottom Alexandrium, one of probably the most toxic species we get, or the toxic genus we get in Scotland. And at the top, PSP toxins, paralytic shellfish poison toxins that it produces. And the four maps are just basically the current week and the preceding 3 weeks to allow to look at sort of evolution. We also produce various little infographics. If you imagine Shetland as a donut, and you can see quite quickly at any one time where it's a traffic light system, it's red, there's a problem in, for example, the northeast there. And then basically we have quite a lot of other pages that have maybe environmental products, maybe modeled currents or water temperature and things like that. And we also produce basically an expert interpretation of what we think will happen the following week. So our forecast, based on our understanding of the HABs and the ecology, do we think there's going to be a problem next week? And so we've been sending that out for quite a long time, as I say. And the system has migrated, although we still do the PDF bulletins, we now have a website, habreports.org. You can log into that if you desire. And it's got a sort of, it now covers the whole of Scotland and has, you can click on, you can zoom in, you can click on any of these aquaculture sites and get various products, again, traffic light system, of alerts whether there's an issue for different taxa or different locations. So that's I guess a routine early warning. And if you're interested, there's a paper we published a few years ago that gives a lot of the details behind how that operates. And what more recently we've then done is move on to try and work with the finfish aquaculture industry. They are also impacted by HABs, but in Scotland and probably more effectively in Europe, it's quite different. They tend to be different taxa, and there's not a human health issue. So there's no regulatory monitoring. The monitoring is done by the farms themselves to basically safeguard fish health and minimize economic loss. So we've been doing some project on the basis of that. The monitoring tends to be a bit more, well, different companies do different things. There's less consistency. So we've been working with SAIC and also Scottish Sea Farms in Maui to try and improve this consistency. And now there's also a HAB reports, which is unfortunately still hidden behind a login. because the companies regard some of this information as commercially sensitive, but basically doing the same sort of thing and allowing them to share data and have risk between them. And as part of these projects, we've sort of moved into some maybe more sophisticated ways of monitoring phytoplankton. Microscopy probably certainly remains the gold standard, but it's time consuming. It requires very highly trained taxonomists, and you can't do it very often. Shellfish farms we monitor once a week. Finfish farms monitor mostly daily, but probably not as well. The taxonomy isn't as robust. So we've been looking at using these things, imaging flow cytobots, which are basically submersible cameras that will take, I'll take a photograph of every single cell within a 5 milliliter sample, but they can do that once every 20 minutes. So it will get all these images, and then you basically need to build an AI-based classifier to allow you to turn these images into something interpretable. So that needs to be trained. You need to basically use example images, quite a lot of example images, usually about 1,000 of a particular species in different orientations. And then you can build an AI system. We have a PhD student, Gary Groves, who's working on that, and that allows us to really quite rapidly enumerate the different cells. So the picture on the bottom left is the deployment of the flow cytobot in all its housing and at the Cold Deep Fish Farm, a Scottish sea farm site in Shetland. So it's been operating there for getting on for 2 years now in situ, and or operational much more than it isn't, which was a bit of a leap of faith. Most IFCBs aren't operated in situ. They tend to be maybe on the shore and water's pumped into them. And those that are in situ tend to be in a bit more benign conditions than the Northwest Atlantic or Northeast Atlantic here. So we're quite pleased by how well this has run. And as you can see in the bottom right, it's producing high resolution time series of all the different taxa. More work to be done on the classifier, but certainly really quite promising so far. And based on, you see the particular sea locker of Vo, ideally you will probably just deploy one of these, and then the data will protect hopefully fish farms and shellfish farms in the same area. Okay, so this was supposed to be about Southeast Asia. I haven't mentioned that yet. So based on the work we've done in Scotland with HAB reports, we managed to get an ODA, Overseas Development Assistance grant, to work with colleagues in Malaysia, Putin Lim and Chupin Lu, who are phytoplankton ecologists with an interest in harmful algae. And we basically wanted to see how we could operate our system out there. In some ways, it's quite a different environment. The aquaculture sites, you can see there, is situated in a much more eutrophic area, and the water's very much greener than it often is in Scotland. And the harmful taxa, some are the same, but some are different. And for example, Cochlodinium there and Pyrodinium are not organisms that we see in Scotland, but the impacts are the same: fish kills and PST, paralytic shellfish toxins, that might be vectored by shellfish to humans. The impacts are perhaps a little bit more in your face in Asia. Large fish kills, for example. And quite significant socioeconomic impacts. This was a slide produced by Putin, and you can see large economic impacts and also mortalities that, as far as we know, no one's ever been killed by shellfish in Scotland, but there is the potential, I guess, if the monitoring was to completely break. But there are mortalities periodically in other parts of the world. So what we did was basically set up a sort of mirror to our Scottish system. It was constructed slightly differently, but the rationale is quite similar. So we chose to work in sort of Malaysian Borneo. So on the left-hand side, you can see Peninsular Malaysia. But Malaysia is in sort of two parts. The second part is here at the yellow blob next to Brunei. Well, my blob's moved a bit. I'm covering Brunei, but you get the idea. So there's probably more shellfish production and more issues in that part of the country. So that's where we focused on. But very similar idea, that an interactive map with you see all the different sites highlighted here. Green dots are sites that don't have toxin issues at the time. There's some in amber there, and you can see a big red one on the bottom left. And if you click on any one of those, then you can drop down into the different data and see what the issues are. So it operates in a very similar way. Now, quite a lot of that project was supposed to be related to stakeholder engagement, because I guess the communication channels in Scotland are fairly robust. In Malaysia, it was less obvious how we were going to make sure this information became available maybe to the people who needed to know it. So this project, unfortunately, occurred kind of much at peak COVID, and so the amount of stakeholder engagement we were able to do was a little bit limited. But I was able to make a visit and meet with Poteen and Chupin, the top picture. And then the bottom two pictures is my colleague Callum visiting in Sabah on Borneo to meet with, in the middle picture there, the sort of the governmental representatives, and the bottom picture with some of the aquaculture practitioners. And you can obviously spot the scientists as the ones with the life jackets on, and the other people are from the shellfish farmers. But what we did pick up from these conversations was that desktops weren't so commonly used by the industry there, shall we say, and mobile phones would be more, or a mobile phone system would be more beneficial. Now, you can run HAB reports on a mobile phone, but the aesthetics aren't so nice. So we developed a mobile phone app. Again, you can download this if you're interested. HAB reports on Android Store or Google Play or whatever you find, Apple Play or whatever it's called, and you can register to receive alerts. So we started off doing this in Malaysia, and those of you who speak Malay, this will be very obvious. If not, the left-hand side is just various of the aquaculture sites that you can see. Some are green, some have got a little yellow eye that suggests there's something going on, and you would click on that for more information. The middle panel is basically a self-reporting system, on the basis that we know there are areas in Malaysia that aren't well monitored on a regulatory basis. So that information can be self-reported to allow other people to or hopefully alert people, and also get maybe some governmental monitoring to occur in that region. And the left is just flagging up one particular location that there was some harmful taxa present. Pyridinium and Algal were blooming at that time. So the Malaysian system operated for a few years. It's currently not operating just on the basis of funding, unfortunately, but we're hoping to get it back up soon. But basically, allowing us to do some, I guess, technology transfer in the reverse direction, we've been able to set up a Scottish version of the HAB Reports app. And again, just some screen grabs of it, the various aquaculture sites in Scotland. And you can see a couple of red blips there indicating where there's an elevated concentration of something. And then you can drill down. And for example, this particular site, Duerd, has got elevated Pseudonychia and Protocentrem lima. And if you want time series, again, you can have a look at those as well. So it just gives various ways of accessing the data. So finally, to sort of lead into what I was going to talk about, that a lot of what I'm talking about there is effectively nowcast. It's telling people probably what's happened a few days ago or what's just happened. It's not telling us, it's not giving us much forecast apart from our expert interpretation, basically what our brains are telling us. But potentially mathematical models will allow us to do this a little bit more quantitatively. So the thing that's just been running there was a model that we use based on called WestComs, an FVCom based model created by a colleague here, Dmitry Olenek. And that's basically a particle tracking model. You can put in whatever particles you fancy. We fancy algal cells. So if at a particular site a harmful bloom is, I'll see if I can run it again. If at a particular site, say down here in the Small Isles, a harmful bloom is identified, we can put that into the model and it will give us a prediction, in this case, that it will head up into the Minch and impact the southeast, for example, and it's not coming on to impact the sites on the west coast of the mainland. So this works best with high frequency data that allows us to run the model as soon as we find something. So we're running this operationally for the fish farms, for Maui Scottish sea farms, and now Bakkafrost, to allow them to make operational decisions. And the final thing is basically that's all well and good, but at least one site has taken a hit for the monitoring to say, oh, there's a problem here, and then maybe we can try and protect some of the others. Well, can we do anything to maybe just to actually know in advance that a bloom is coming? So this is work by colleague Tim Sevchek, basically using ensemble models, so a lot of different approaches, for example, various Bayesian techniques, and combining the phytoplankton data or our time series knowledge of the phytoplankton data with environmental data to give us effectively or hopefully a true early warning of whether a bloom is going to occur when it wasn't there before. So that's recently published in Harmful Algae just this year, and we're currently just beginning to roll out the real test of that in an operational fashion. So finally, just thanks to a variety of funders across the last 10 or 12 years, and I'll now pass over to Hoa.
First of all, I would like to thank MASTS for granting me the visiting fellowship to enable me to do the research back in my home country. And so for today, I will introduce my research for the visiting. It's about investigating causes of increasing algae bloom along Vietnam coast over the past decades. So first of all, just some background information about Vietnam coast. So we located at the Western Pacific Ocean. We have really long coastline. Therefore, naturally, the contribution from the marine economy to the income of Vietnam is quite high, up to 50% of the GDP of the country. And for the marine-related activity, we have tourism, harbor, logistics, oil mining, fishing, aquaculture, and wind energy. The activity bring back income to the country, but on the other hand, it also cause impact to the marine ecosystem. And to look at the marine ecosystem, the first thing we look at the phytoplankton, which is the building block of the marine ecosystem. About phytoplankton bloom along the coast of Vietnam. The phytoplankton bloom often happen at the coast and near river mouth, for example, close to Red River mouth in the north, or Mekong delta river mouth in the south, and it also happened at the central of Vietnam. In this area is the hotspot for upwelling. And the season for phytoplankton bloom often happen during the monsoon season. For the north is the winter monsoon, and for the south is summer monsoon. However, changes in phytoplankton bloom have been observed recently. In detail, there are new locations with the allergy or harmful allergy bloom reported. For example, in Hà Tĩnh and Huế, the first phytoplankton bloom observed in 2017, and for Hà Tĩnh, it reoccurred in the last 2 years. Also, interestingly, phytoplankton bloom often happen along the coast, near river mouths or in the upwelling region. But now we also observe phytoplankton offshore in Paracel Islands, Condal Island, and Phu Quoc Islands. Especially in Phu Quoc Island, the local people said that they haven't seen this phenomena over 30 years. And this event, it happened quite shortly. However, it already called a fish death. So, and for the location that usually happen phytoplankton bloom, for example, Bình Thuận, there is change in species that causes the bloom. So this suggested that change has happened in the marine ecosystem along Vietnam coast. A study also suggests that changes are poorly understood due to the limited monitoring data, and for the modeling effort, it's also limited because of the computing resources. So to explain the chances in phytoplankton bloom, currently there are 4 hypotheses. The first suggested that chances due to the transport of the bloom to the coast. It means that maybe bloom happens somewhere, and the change in the transport that push the bloom to the coast. The second hypothesis suggested that maybe land-based waste linked to the river discharge increase the nutrient and therefore support phytoplankton bloom. The third one related to the point source discharge from industrial factory and aquaculture ponds. So in Vietnam, in 2030, in the last 20-30 years, there's many industrial zones along the coast, and also aquaculture pond increasing. So they also possible the causes for change in phytoplankton observed in the last decade. And the last hypothesis suggests that the extreme ocean conditions linked to climate change, such as marine heat wave, is also possible to support phytoplankton growth. In this project, we would like to address the hypothesis 3 and 4. We choose these 2 hypotheses to address due to the available data, also previous study that have some information help us to investigate these 2 hypotheses, as well as the global data, for example, sea surface temperature, wind, and other conditions that's suitable for us to explore these 2 hypotheses. And basically, for these 2 hypotheses, we will look at the changes in nutrient and temperature that can influence the timing bloom and the peak of the timing bloom. And how to do this? We plan to use a modeling approach. And as the bloom event happen at certain location, so we think first of all, the 1D approach the 1D model approach would be the best one to try. And we plan to use the Gotham EcoSmall model. I have been working with this model for a while, so it's convenient for me to make a setup of the model in Vietnam. For the ecosystem model, we use the EcoSmall model, which is the NPZD general style model developed at our group here in Hereon. It includes 3 phytoplankton component, 2 zooplankton component. And so for this model, it would allow us to investigate chances in model parameter to bloom timing and peak of the bloom. And we want to look at how or which parameter would drive the bloom timing and peak. Therefore, we also apply the global sensitivity analysis SOBO method, because this method help us to answer how much of the variation in the output is caused by the variation in each specific input. And in my case study, the output in SOBO method would be the bloom timing and the bloom peak. And the input to SOBO methods is the phytoplankton growth related parameters. In this diagram, it's explained how the SOBO sensitivity analysis work. So first of all, we need to define which parameter we interested in. And in this case, it's the phytoplankton growth related parameter, and then there are lower and upper bound for the parameter. Then the SOBO sequence would generate parameter set and to run the model, and then it calculates the SOBO index based on the quantity of interest, bloom timing and bloom peak, and then based on the SOBO index, the first order, the second order, and the total, we would know which parameter or which parameter combination would strongly influence the bloom timing and peak. So that is the general approach to investigate the hypothesis 3 and 4. And for the study site, we would like to apply the method in 3 locations. The first location is the hotspot. For allergy bloom, the place often happen the bloom. And then for new bloom location along the coast, I would choose the Hà Tĩnh, because this one it the phytoplankton bloom reoccurs. And for offshore, I would choose the Paracels Island, because it's really offshore compared to the other 2 islands. Therefore, it's eliminate the influence of the human. And in this location, we can observe only the influence of the natural condition. Yeah, then from this, we hope to get information on which parameter drive the bloom at each location, and we will see if there are common arrival or how the arrival differently due to the location itself. So for a further plant, I would like to extend the 1D setup to further investigate other causes of algae bloom and to the marine ecosystem of Vietnam. And if the condition allow, then I also would like to bring the understanding from the 1D model to transfer to the icon model. So the icon model here is a global model, the climate global model, but inside it already have biogeochemical component. So that it allows us to investigate the marine ecosystem. And also in my group, there's a college that already developed a grid that to get the higher resolution closer to the coast. And I hope to learn from my colleagues to apply the MASTS into Vietnam coast. And also there is ongoing work to integrate the ecosystem model, ECOSMO, with you into this icon model. So with all of this, it could be a really advantage for me to choose you the model for further investigate the marine ecosystem in Vietnam. Yeah, so that's all about my research plan for the visiting and the further that I would like to do after the visiting fellowship. And of course, this could really depend on the funding if we get later. So when we draw this application for the visiting fellowship, we also already have in mind some funding like Horizon Europe for Asia or the ISPF that we hope to we able to apply for based on the outcomes of the visiting.